What's going on, everybody? Martha Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 36. And today we see Venom on the cover here. It looks like a very frightened Spider-Man as well. So we're just continuing the storyline here. We got basically Peter Parker realizing that the symbiote suit is not all what it's cracked up to be. And so today's title is Today, and we're just going, like I said, to continue the story. Previously, though, in Ultimate Spider-Man, Peter visits college student Eddie Brock, a childhood friend and the son of his father's scientific colleague. Eddie shows Peter an experiment that their fathers were working on right before their deaths, a black liquid that can transform into a protoplasmic bodysuit, curing any illness and enhancing the wearer's strength and abilities. Vowing to complete his father's work and find a way to use the suit to cure cancer, Peter secretly removes a sample of the murky liquid from Eddie's college laboratory, but when he gets a drop on his skin, he is encased in a living black costume that expands his powers and renders him nearly unstoppable. At first, Peter is intoxicated by his new powers, which made him an unbeatable crime fighter. But the suit brings out a darker side of Peter, and he stops himself just in time before killing a burglar. He manages to fight free of the suit's influence, but has he done it soon enough? And so before we get started, let's go ahead and give credit. We got Brian Michael Bendis on the story, Mark Bagley on the penciling, Art Thibbert on the inking. We have Chris Ilopoulos, lettering page, Stephanie Moore, and C.V. Cebulski, assistant and associate editors. We have Brian Smith, associate editor, Ralph Macchio, editor, Joe Quesada, editor-in-chief, and Jill Jamas, president and inspiration. And so we begin this issue off. We basically have Gwen Stacy, and it looks like she is in the dorm room of Eddie Brock. We know that about 2 issues ago, they went on a date pretty much, and they were just pretty much hanging out as friends, though. It wasn't really a date, though, but it was really just them hanging out, having a fun time at this concert, this reggae concert. And so now, basically, Gwen has invited herself into Eddie Brock's room, and it looks like Eddie Brock is going to try to make a move on Gwen, and he is instantly rejected. Dang, put in the friend zone real quick there. And so we see here, he's like, what? Gwen's like, don't. He said, you serious? And she's like, yeah, come on. He's like, why? And I mean, she has obvious reasons. She's 15, and he's like 18 or 19 at this point. So illegal. But anyway, she's like, I got to get out of here. And so she's like, I came up here to hang out, not to have sex with you, basically. And she says, but I see that isn't good enough, so... And he's like, tease. He looks down. She slams the door. And then we see Eddie says, they're all the same. Never changes. So he flips on the television screen, and he notices Spider-Man is wearing a unique costume. This is all taking place from last issue. And he's like, what is this? And he sees Spider-Man swinging off. He immediately leaves his dorm, and he runs to that research facility where it was housing basically Peter Parker and Eddie Brock's father's experiment. And when he gets in, he notices someone is returning that symbiote suit back to its place. And it just so happens to be Peter Parker wearing these raggedy clothes. Remember, when he had taken off the Venom suit, he was completely naked. So he had to basically take some like dirty clothes from a hidden alley, put them on. And this is where Eddie Brock is going to find out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He puts 2 and 2 together. He looks at the wall, and he looks at Peter's feet, and he's just completely shocked. And he said, what have you done? Peter says, it's not what you think. It's something horrible has happened, and we have to Eddie says, "What are you doing here, Peter? How did you?" And then Peter says, "Eddie, listen to me. Listen. This thing our fathers created, it's uncontrollable. And if it is uncontrollable, me and you, we don't have the ability to contain it. We can't take responsibility for it. We can't." Eddie says, "I trusted you with a secret. I trusted you. And what did you do? Who are you, Peter?" And then we see Peter reveals his spider suit here. As we see, he has his web fluid cartridges showing. Now, Eddie for sure knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He's like, "God, what are you?" He said, "Are you a mutant?" And he said, "No, Eddie, I'm not a mutant." And then he said, "I don't want to know what is going on here. You better tell me what the F is going on, or I'm going to alert the police." And he says, basically, Peter Parker reveals everything to Eddie Brock. I mean, I don't know if that's a wise move in my case. I mean, so many people already know about Peter Parker being Spider-Man at this point. Now we add Eddie Brock to the mix. And basically, Peter Parker is just telling him about how, both of their fathers worked on this suit, but there's so many variables that still needs to be tested out. And I, for one, put on the suit for an hour, and it changed me, Eddie. It gave me extra strength. It basically controlled my mind, and it was very difficult to take off. I just do not think this is a wise move to mess with this stuff. I need to get rid of it, Eddie. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to destroy it." Eddie says, "It's not like I can stop you." And Peter says, "I'm sorry, Eddie." And then he says, "Do you believe me that I made a mistake and I'm sorry?" He says, "Yes." "Do you believe me that this is so dangerous?" He says, "Yeah." Then Peter says, "Do you believe that if I could rewind the last 2 days, that I would have done this differently? That I would have come to you and we would have figured this out together?" "Eddie, no one knows what I've told you. No one knows who I am. Not Gwen, Aunt May, nobody in the..." And he says, "Yeah, that's right. That's how much it means to me that you believe me. What we share, our memories together, I would never betray that." And so Peter's like, "All right, I gotta go." But then Eddie's like, "Ah," and he's like, I gotta ingest this." And he said, "Yeah, sure." So we see Eddie leaves the room. Peter looks down, and that vessel of black liquid, that black suit, he runs up, leaps out of the research facility, goes all the way up to this smokestack, and drops the black suit, the Venom suit, into this inferno, the chimney stack. So Peter Parker returns back to Aunt May's house, puts on some clean clothes, sees that Gwen Stacy is in the living room watching TV, and she said, "Hey, where have you been?" And he's like, "I was at the Daily Bugle." And then he's like, "Hey, where's Aunt May?" And she's at this PTA meeting. And so they continue to talk, and she brings up the fact that Eddie Brock hit on Gwen, and she's not too happy about it, and she thinks he's a dirtbag. And he basically says, "Well, you know what? I don't think he's really fond of me either." And then she says, "And when I said, 'No, get the hell off me,' he didn't kick me out, but he might as well have. What a scuzzball." He said, "I'm just saying, I know he's your old childhood buddy, but the guy's a herb." And so we see that Peter and Gwen are starting to connect here. So let's now take a little bit of a flashback. We see that when Peter left to destroy the Venom suit, as 43 minutes ago had passed, but let's see what Eddie Brock was up to. As Eddie was walking out of the room, he stops, goes back, uses his key, and he just so happens to say, "He did it. Little jerk took it." And he says, "15-year-old mutant coming into my life and telling me, thinks I don't have a brain in my head. It's an ongoing experiment, you toddler. You keep the specimens separate so you can keep your figure straight. Guess they didn't get to that in high school bio yet. So let's see. Oh my goodness. So there is still more of the Venom suit left, and we see that Eddie Brock is going to dip 2 fingers into this case here, this vial of black liquid, the Venom suit. And so we will be seeing most likely Eddie Brock as Venom in the next issue. We have a lot going on, a lot to look forward to. So before we look at the next issue, go ahead, give this video a like. Comment down below what you liked about this issue and what you think about the story so far. And subscribe if you have not. And I will see y'all in the next one.